senior next year, so it'll be my 5th year.
I'm Leilani. I am a junior this year, and I am also running for DPS president. And yeah, I'm in Trinity.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm also a junior in Trinity, and I am another candidate.
So the first question is just open-ended. Why did you apply to be DPS president, and what excites you about the position? So you can go in any order you want, and if you don't feel like sharing, that's okay.
Well, I guess the reason why I'm running for DPS president is because Duke has really provided me, as I'm sure if you've read my statement, it's really provided me with a ton of pathways to explore all of my various interests. And after 3 years here at Duke, I feel like I've found that my passion lies in leadership and service. And DPS president is the perfect intersection of leadership and service. And that is really why I want to be president of DPS, is because it brings together my two greatest passions and allows me to really capitalize on that and represent what I really care about. So, yeah.
I think for me, I am incredibly passionate about Duke. I'm in love with this school. Like, it's the greatest school in the world. And I actually transferred here last year. And so I have just been really blown away by how blessed we all are with the opportunities that we have here. And I've gotten involved with a number of service organizations and loved every second of it. And after a lot of service this summer working with a nonprofit in Southern Appalachia, I kind of realized how much I love service and like how high on life that makes me. And I think that every student on this campus wants in some way to make a difference, and everybody has this passion and they just don't really know how to. And I think DPS is a really great way to have the opportunity to spread to every student the possibility for having that high on life from service. And I think working with the current organizations, like, in order to allow everyone to know more about DPS, so that if they have any idea or any desire to get involved in service, they know where they can go, and we can help everyone get that high. So that's my passion for you and my passion for service kind of intersect in the same way with DPS.
Cool. So for me, I feel like, and I still kind of feel this way, that my candidacy is a bit unexpected. And Sonia will probably tell you guys this. She probably received my application around exactly 5 p.m. and my resume maybe at 5:01. So maybe I'm not a legitimate candidate. And I was emailing her the other day, yesterday, am I a finalist? Should I come to the thing tomorrow? Because I just didn't even expect to get this far. Mostly because I've not really been involved with DPS, and usually I feel like people, especially the president, are people who have been there for a while. And the reason that I chose to apply, and actually even granted in service in general at Duke, is something that I've kind of gotten away from over the last 4 years. And to explain that, it's mostly just been, and I think there's a sentiment that is shared by a lot of Duke students, and maybe people in this room, is that I was kind of disillusioned my freshman year. I think that one of the things that I really wanted to do, as they said, is, and I think a lot of Duke students are very passionate about leadership, service, taking their education and applying it to the community, locally, globally. But I think what happens a lot of times is that there's a certain lack of efficacy in the programs that everyone's organizations here, organizations I've been part of. My sophomore year, I think it's called DID now. It was EWB in the past. I was VP, and I actually really enjoyed that experience. But I felt like a lot of organizations, it's a matter of resume building for people in exec positions, and then when you go to actual programs, if you don't see anybody else but the exec board members who kind of have to be there, and then sometimes not even them, it's a question of, so then you have to ask yourself, are Duke students not passionate about these issues, or is there a problem with the way that it's being communicated, how people feel like, is this a legitimate kind of, oh, we really just want to do this to serve, or we want to do this because we're an organization and we said we have to do this, and I'm in this leadership position and I need to check all these boxes. So basically, when DPS sent out a mass email a couple of times, I was like, hey, why not? Maybe I'll get back involved. I know next year I'm going to be very, he gave me props for being super senior, but I feel like I don't deserve that because I'm probably going to be taking pretty easy classes, so I'll have a lot of time in my hands. It's it's gonna be like thesis writing stuff, so not real classes. I feel like, uh, and so I thought to myself, I have a lot of free time. Service and leadership, as with everyone in this room, probably very is paramount to who I am and how I identify myself as a Duke student. And I think that the DPS president and DPS at large is in a very unique position to kind of connect organizations, and that's going to be a big emphasis for me. Not um, just being another leader in another organization for service and to do these programs, but really connecting organizations and moving beyond just like, let's have this traditional paradigm of, hey, let's just do the same old events, have the same old like 5 or 6 students show up to everything. The students that aren't exec yet, they're going to be exec in the future. That's why they're showing up to stuff. I actually believe that Duke students really are passionate about these things, and I think that there's a problem right now. So that's why I applied.
Okay. So speaking of specifically DPS's goal, actually, yeah, go ahead.
And can I just ask, the organization that you mentioned, DID, can you just say the acronym? What the acronym?
I think it's Duke Engineers
Yeah, it's
International.
Duke Engineers for International Development.
Okay, and that used
We
to
have
be.
like an
Engineers Without Borders.
Right, exactly.
I think it changed just because like the finance or something, or
Yeah, it's just like regulations with EWB.
I also remember Dr. Shah didn't really like EWE National. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking specifically about DPS's 3 goals, one of them is clearly the most important to these people right here, and that's the supporting. So one of DPS's main goals is supporting the 65 plus service groups, 66 service groups in many different ways, including with the SOFC processes, the financing, the annual budgeting, grants, so anything financial, also connecting them to community partners, advising them on anything, helping them get in touch with different people, right? So that's the main one in terms of the groups that are in existence. The next one is connecting, and this should be hopefully reviewed, but connecting is bringing the different groups together, and also more importantly, well, not more importantly, but more importantly to the larger student body, getting students connected, right? So like when I was running last year, the big thing in my head was there's so many kids or young adults who really want to get involved in service, but they get pulled in different directions, right? And so one thing I really cared about was how do we connect the student body to these things. So we've done a few things this year for that. And then the third one is inspire. So that's more along the lines of how do we create a culture of service and social action, whether that be through events or many other different things. So what we want to ask is what has DPS done well this year, or not so well, so and or not so well, in those 3 categories, and what can we build? What can you guys build upon that, and or what can you change?
I think DPS this year has done a really great job of supporting the existing organizations through the grants and having resources available, and has done a really great job in terms of connecting and inspiring with the service matching survey that you can take online, which I know I took and I thought it was pretty accurate. But I think something that in the future could really be improved on with the existing organizations is just, I see serving as DPS president as an opportunity to make 65 new friends, like at least. So I think it's really important for the exec board of DPS and just DPS as an organization to become more than an obstacle or some bureaucratic thing and more of an ally to everyone, so that you guys don't just see DPS as something that you need to get around in order to get a grant or in order to get something approved, but kind of a partner with you. So if you have a problem or you want something really, really cool to happen in your organization, you know that you can work with us, and we can like help you out with that, because we definitely do have the resources, and obviously the goal for DPS would be to help you guys. And I think in terms of Connect and Inspire, it will be really great next year having something on West Campus and maybe holding office hours for students and getting people involved in that way. And the new website is awesome. I think that really DPS just needs to get out there as much as possible and be a little bit obnoxious with marketing around campus and like being in everyone's face so that everyone knows what DPS is and it becomes kind of a dorm room name so that anyone who wants to get involved with an organization or anyone who has a really cool idea will immediately think of DPS and come to us and we can help them out. And I think that a really great way to do that, kind of stolen from my days at University of Pittsburgh before I transferred here, we had Make a Difference Day there, and I know we have a national Make a Difference Day here, but I think at Pitt it was kind of a social thing. Like, people who weren't necessarily all for Make a Difference Day wanted to like get the t-shirt and hang out with their friends for a day, and it kind of felt cool. So if we can work with not only these organizations but teams and Greek organizations and religious organizations, all of whom like, want to serve, working with them to have some day or I don't know, big event where everyone's kind of focused on service, and afterwards we can have like a student activities fair just for these service organizations, so you guys can put info out there and recruit. Because I know when a lot of people come in freshman year or even just the beginning of any year, it's really overwhelming with all the opportunities, and they sign up for a ton and then they end up just getting your emails weekly and not really paying attention because they don't really know who you are. So I think another opportunity, like in October or a little bit later in the school year, to like give out your information and try to like get people to know you guys better, would be a great opportunity.
Something that I've really noticed that's like really improved within DPS since I was a freshman is visibility. And I think that this really happens specifically through the Chronicle columns that have been sponsored by DPS, because not only I used to be a columnist for the Chronicle, and so I understand that readership for the columns has gone up significantly in the past couple of years because we've had really good columnists, and then including that, like having DPS be in that and like having like more readership, as well as having DPS write these supported columns that are written by organizations that, you know, I'm sure DPS exec probably agreed to support them. And so I think that that was a really great visibility move on DPS's part, and I think that it's really interesting as well that with the blast emails, I feel like I've seen more organizations come out in all of those blast emails. Like, organizations are slowly realizing that like DPS does have a huge listserv, and you can send your every single like little event to DPS and they will be there to support you and send out the emails and encourage other students. And I think that another way to connect even further within that is that I think I would make it a personal incentive if I see a blast that is pertaining to maybe two organizations that like one organization's hosting an event and another organization would be really interested in that. Like, global health is a huge issue, and there's a ton of organizations within DPS that are interested in global health. And so I think that'd be really cool, like as president, to pick up on that, send an email to all of the global health organizations being like, hey, like, you may not know that these people are also hosting, you know, a fundraiser, like why don't you head out to the plaza? You know, like just encouraging like more connection, and personal emails I think are just a really great way of doing that. And yeah, so that's some of the ways that I've seen DPS really improve, and I think that we can capitalize even more on that, because as I think like has been the resounding statement within the three of us, there really is a shifting like social tide towards social action. Like, I felt that Duke has become more socially active, and I want DPS to be the platform for that action. And I would want to be the person who could represent DPS, be the voice for DPS, to have the administration realize exactly how important like this kind of umbrella organization is, and how important service is to students. And so I think that by getting everyone on board, including administration, including all of our organizations, in the end we can really inspire and help other students discover what they need. I think that it's really interesting that that hasn't quite gotten out to the student body just yet, because like I remember one of my girlfriends, she came up to me the other day when I was walking up the stairs, and she's like, where are you coming from? And I was like, oh, you know, like I was just like doing like this volunteering organization. And she's like, how do you know about all these volunteering organizations? I was like, oh, I get like, I'm in Alpha Phi Omega, which is like a really good model for connecting different organizations, because APO works with Chance, it works with science days. It works with a lot of different DPS organizations, and I think that that's a great model for like further connection. And so like she's like, how do you know about this? I was like, oh, I'm an APO, and like we work with Chance, and so I was over there this night, like, and she's just like, I have no clue where to find these service opportunities. And I was like, girl, like, get on the DPS listserv. Like, you can find all of these and all of these opportunities. You can find what you're actually interested in, and like, and then you can get to the website and take that survey and really find out what you're passionate about and like really pursue what you want to pursue and what aligns with your beliefs. And so I really commend DPS for improving so much, and I just hope to further that through, you know, more personal connection and also following models that I've seen work, like APOs having a leader from each one of like the organizations that are also in DPS promote projects with that specific organization. I think that that is a really effective way of bringing together a community of people who are service oriented. So, yeah.
So I would definitely agree with both of the major points that have been said so far, which is that we need to increase visibility for DPS, but I also think that's something that's just generally a good thing for any organization to do. Because one of the things for me is really probably the extent of my knowledge of DPS, even up till now, is hearing when I was on exec boards and hearing friends who are on exec boards just talk about, oh, okay, we need to finish this DPS application for funding. So it's basically seems like DPS is the campus bank. And I feel like DPS is in a unique position to be a lot more than just that. I think that's wonderful and that is important. We all need money for all the different things we're trying to do. But I think that DPS can use that kind of, as we say in the political science, power of the purse to use it as leverage to get organizations working together. And that really would be the biggest emphasis for me, which is getting you guys working together, getting organizations that aren't part of DPS working together, because I definitely feel like a lot of times it's easy for each specific group to get kind of tunnel visioned into what their programs are. And then when you're only drawing from your, well, it varies between organizations, but from your own group of members, you're bound to get, even if you're an awesome organization, you get 100% participation, there's no way that you can get as much potential as there is out there in the Duke community. And one of the things I would even say is, I don't know how often meetings like this happen where everyone gets together, but I would definitely suggest, if it is the case, that it's only, you know, when it comes time for elections that we all meet. It's kind of like an extended family that only gets together for a funeral, you know. I feel like that there should be, and I don't mean to call you out on this, but I remember earlier hearing.
So I'm gonna correct factual mistakes at the end, but continue.
Okay. So I just don't know if you guys have more meetings, and I would hope that is the case. I remember hearing you earlier introduce yourself to one of the presidents, and I feel like
Sure. No, that's unfair.
It's definitely something that I feel like everyone should not be best friends, but know each other. And organization, even between organizations, I feel like the president of this other organization shouldn't just come up in your mind when you think that you need them. I feel like it should be systemic, like almost, you know, you're always going to be in communication with them. That's the biggest thing for me. Open lines of communication, so that when it does come time and you feel like, oh, I'm doing a program that would work really well with this other organization, I already have a relationship with them. It's not just now I'm shooting an email, hey, you want to help us out with this? We're kind of low on funds, and we kind of want to partner with you because your name has something that overlaps with our name. Like we're all global health, this or that, or we're all engineering, this or that. For instance, the Duke Engage program I went on was building a clinic in Honduras, and it was with EWB, which was very engineer-oriented, but I definitely felt like we could have partnered with something like global health, because we also need to get in medical supplies, and things of that sort. And so anywhere from just getting more members to show up to events, getting more funding for things, I feel like DPS, because we see all these different things come across our table as people are applying for funding, we kind of have, we can, especially the president, can kind of get a feel of the pulse of the campus, of the service organizations. What's everyone doing, and how can we connect them? So that's just the biggest emphasis for me, just getting people working together rather than just having a million individual little organizations.
Let's limit this one to maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and we'll switch the order just so that it's more balanced. What's a major challenge that the existing Duke service groups face, and what could DPS do to address it? Just one challenge.
Just getting members out to stuff, I would say. legit, like as I mentioned at the very beginning, just getting them legitimately feeling like this is about service, this is about this cause that I care about, rather than this is just going through the motions, this is just another program. I would say that's the biggest thing.
So what can DPS do to address that?
Everything that we've talked about thus far. Basically, one, get the word out so that more people can come. But I think that the word, in some ways, I think that the word is out there and people know about events. They get the mass emails, but at a certain point, they become kind of desensitized. When they see you on the BC, they just walk by. You know, I mean, you don't even stop and figure out what's going on. When you get the mass emails, you kind of skim through. Is an organization I'm a part of in this email, so I can just kind of get the news about it. And so I would say that building connections between organizations is again the biggest thing for me, because you can get members, because members within organizations probably know you guys personally and trust you guys, and are more willing to listen to emails that you send than emails from this other random organization or a big mass email with like a long chain of different events from DPS. And I think that if we can get two organizations talking to each other, with DPS kind of being like in the background, just bringing it together, I think that's going to be a lot more effective than just, you know, throwing it out there. But
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I did it kind of quick. I noticed that. What is a major challenge, one challenge that existing Duke service groups face, and what can DPS do to address that challenge? If you need more time because you didn't hear the question, that's fine.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think not even necessarily getting more numbers to like work with you in events and be I don't know, allies with you guys, is that you guys, I think a lot of the organizations attract the same type of person, whether it be engineering groups or like I don't know, a global health that attracts the same type of person, or a social justice group that attracts, you know, the people that are very interested in that because they have invested interest in it. So I think something that's really big is getting a different and more diverse group of students to work with you. And something that DPS can do through that is in kind of advocating for you guys, trying to talk to other organizations that are interested in service, like I mentioned. I know when DPS was founded, it was a way to bring together not only service organizations like you guys, but also the Greek organizations, the religious organizations, all the organizations on campus that want in some form to serve. And I think a big way that DPS can do that, not only reaching out to these teams and groups individually and saying, hey, like these people are doing this event, or they have this cause, do you want to help them out, is also, I mean, maybe monthly or whatever it works out to be, is having DPS support one group, whoever, you know, applies or volunteers to do it, however it works out being, to have some big event, because I know a lot of students want to make a difference, they want to serve, but they can't necessarily commit to come to weekly meetings and do like going to an animal shelter every single week type thing. But if we advertise some big event where a lot of students will go, like this Sunday, to help out at an animal shelter, or like a really big build for Habitat, then we can bring in on that one day, just like a one-day commitment, we can bring in a lot more people. And then, you know, once they serve with you that one time, they might think, oh my gosh, this is really cool, like I want to go back to Habitat every week. So I think sponsoring like one larger event once a month or whatever it ends up being would be a great way to get new people involved.
So something that I think is really crucial and beautiful about DPS is that it's an umbrella organization for any type of service. It includes Camp Kesem, which is a 1 week in the summer, like not, you know, like this isn't like an everyday, every week kind of service event, but DPS is, you know, there to support them, as well as the people who go every week to volunteer at the Ronald McDonald House, or, you know, whatever your thing is. And so the thing that I think we struggle with here at Duke, but is really growing, is having service and social action be part of everyday life. And this is something that I really want to see the Duke community strive for, and I really believe that we're going in this direction. And I think that our service community is kind of the people who can be the catalyst for this kind of Duke community where people are socially aware. And I think that that is what I would strive to promote in DPS is this idea of service and social action in everyday life. And I think that that is like the greatest hoop to jump over. And at the same time, it's interesting because there's kind of a paradox because like for MLK Day, we had the Million Meals, and that was such a huge event, and so many people came out for that. So what's the difference? This is something I've been reflecting a lot on, is like what's the difference between having all of these Duke people who are like, hey, I want to do service and I'm going to go out to the Million Meals event. What's the difference between getting people out for that event and getting people out for, you know, a smaller plaza fundraising event, or even not even that, but like, you know, maybe a dance marathon on the plaza? Like, why is it so much harder to get people out there for that event than for like a very large event? And so I think that the essence of that is the idea of just letting service and social action be in your everyday life. And so that is what I would strive to promote, a culture in which that's what people really think about. And like, I think that that would really improve our service organizations overall. And I think that that would improve everyone overall, because then DPS could serve all of its organizations equally and serve its mission, and yet also, you know, kind of leave organizations to be autonomous, to have their own leaders, to run their own lives.
What are some, okay, a lot of you talked about the idea of this West Campus office, right? So we have a central campus house right now, literally just used for storage. And the reasoning for that is it's difficult already to get group leaders who are doing things that they're doing with their groups. They have immense responsibility. If we're saying, hey, we're going to have the all DPS retreat, which we had at the beginning of the year, at the DPS house, we ended up having like 65 people there, 45 group leaders there. It was the first time it ever happened. It was really dope, but it wouldn't have happened if we said, come to Central Campus. Wouldn't have happened. So now that we're moving to West Campus office, which is something we really worked towards and we really wanted, there's a lot more opportunity to be, I don't know how much you guys know about other schools that have much older service umbrella organizations like UNC, Harvard, and Yale. But at UNC, for example, they have this Campus Y, where they just have this place that's like centrally located, where it's kind of a hub. So a lot of people on exec thought, oh, that's kind of cool. That's something we might want to have. But thinking about in your ideas and in your imaginations, now that we have an office,
Having a physical place on West is going to be very helpful.
Well, I think that, you know, the idea of location is actually so pertinent to student groups, to anything that wants to bring people together. And something that I know about this is that through DSG I worked a lot with the West Union renovations, and we really struggled within student affairs, which was what I was on last year. We really struggled with balancing who would get spots on West, and I think that DPS is definitely one of the organizations that deserves it, along with LGBTQ Center and, you know, the Mary Lou. Like, all of these organizations are going to be hubs for social gatherings, and it's funny because, you know, genius can come out of social behavior, and really, like, creative thinking can really be inspired by just having a group of people together in a central location and allowing them to interact and allowing them to see, like, what comes of this interaction. So I think that within the DPS office, of course, leaving it open to having all student groups meet there is something that I would definitely support, just like the UCAE, and having, you know, resources in there, not even just resources, but like a conference table is like something that really attracts students there. Like, building a culture like how there is in these other offices of having people study in there or watch TV in there is like a great way to encourage people to come to the office, to go there and hang out with other people. Beyond that, I think that maybe it would be the position of our outreach officer to really take in those suggestions from students who are in an organization but would like to, I'm not really sure who an exec would really be the one who would take the point on this one, but I think that it just having like the officers be hanging around there and able to take in people's ideas who don't have an organization, but they have a great idea for a service project or a social group, social action group, I think that would all be things that I would want, that I would envision for an office. But just being on West, obviously, that is crucial. That's crutch, and it would be great for DPS, and I think that will naturally improve the kind of circulation within organizations and DPS and kind of our visibility.
I think in terms of people who aren't already connected with an organization, just being on West, being visible is going to be huge, because you walk past something every day, and even though you may not think about it when you do, then when you need it, like if you have an idea and you want to come to DPS about it, like you'll immediately think of DPS. Like I know if you had asked me 2 weeks ago what DITA was, I probably would have not been able to tell you. Like, does anyone know the acronym for it? It's like Duke Innovative Design Agency. Great. Well, like 2 weeks ago, I probably could not have told you what that was at all, but I know that I passed it every single day. And then for our house council, we needed to come up with a sign to put on the front of our house. And we were trying to draw it out, and it looked like crap. And I was like, wow, I really just wish there was someone who could help me out with a cool design for our house. And I was like, oh my gosh, DITA, I pass them every single day. So just having that visibility, when people pass it every single day, it's gonna be more in the back of their heads. If they have an idea, it'll pop to them. And as far as the existing organizations, I think, as Leland was saying, just having an area where people can come together, it will make us seem, I don't know, a lot more available, I think. And that's part of what I was talking about, is becoming more of an ally rather than an obstacle. I think that, you know, if there are execs hanging around the office, or like you guys come and hang around the office, if you're hanging around, like you're gonna talk to one another, you're gonna talk about your ideas, and you may say, oh cool, like that would be awesome if we did this thing together. But I think just rather than having this email, this like abstract idea that you send your grant proposals to and stuff, having an actual physical place where you know you can find someone from DPS will do a lot for connecting not only us to you guys, but you guys to each other.
Cool. So we're going to do 1 minute for the next two. Those are the final two, and then anybody can ask a question. Also, I should say, the office is not going to be quite the size of UCAE, so I think we're going to be a little bit, but it should be fine. So what are some, okay, basically, what I will say is that on my kind of reflection is that I've learned, like, when I did class council, I was really big on events. Like, people are going to see what we're doing. It's going to be the measure of success is how many people attend, things like that. So I was very visible oriented. Like, everything needs to be like a big deal. And what I've learned through DPS is that some of the most effective things and most sustainable things we've done this year for the groups and just for the student body is things that we've had to just like kind of put our heads down and do without caring so much about, you know, the out front. So it's not as traditionally exciting as some people would say, but in the end, in the long result, you know, it's a big deal, and it's kind of more sustainable. And so examples of that, the new website, the DPS online service match, some of the weekly emails to the groups, the weekly emails to the student body, the grant restructuring, meeting with SOFC, small things like that that nobody probably hears about until the final result comes out. So all that being said, can you talk about a time in which you've worked on something behind the scenes, not immediately enjoyable maybe, that created meaningful change, and just kind of summarize it? And we'll go this way.
Well, I think this is just something that really excites me, even though it's not the traditional exciting thing about the position of president of DPS, is that I think even though I've been a part of all these really cool, exciting events, I feel like I've gotten a ton more from Duke and this community than I've given back to it. And I think, like you're saying, like the underground type of things are really the type of thing that when I leave here at like 50 years, I can look back and say, like, I know I made a difference on the Duke community. Whereas I'm probably not going to feel like I really made a difference like that one day out on the quad doing something fun. But, sorry, can you repeat the second half of the question?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's really not second half, just you kind of did it, but just talk about something meaningful where you did something that was behind the scenes.
Well, this past summer I worked for the Appalachia Service Project, which is a Christian nonprofit that builds and repairs homes for low-income families in southern Appalachia. You should all volunteer. It's like the coolest thing ever. But
You're already doing the job.
Yeah, but I was volunteer coordinator at our center in Avery County, North Carolina. And so a lot of my job, other than hanging out with the high school volunteers who were super cool and fun, was that I would be stuck back in the office when all the rest of my staff was out, like building homes or doing cool things, trying to get volunteers to come, calling churches, asking for donations and for volunteers. But a lot was just, I had to enter all of the progress and pictures on these houses into this stupid database, I thought at the time. And it was so frustrating, and I felt like I wasn't actually producing anything until it wasn't, like my employment ended in August, and I didn't find out until about a month ago, actually, that the results of me putting all that stuff in, we were able to get a ton of funding from North Carolina government, since this was our first time in North Carolina. Because they were so impressed with what we'd done, they were able to give us a couple of cold water grants, which is basically they will pay for plumbing as long as we have our volunteers put it in, which is something that our organization isn't normally able to do. So that was huge and like a really cool aha moment for me a month ago, and I was like, wow, I hated Aspire, that database that I had to put stuff into, but it really did pay off in the end.
One situation that I was really working on, like, I guess I would call it like the infrastructure of an organization is in my Duke Engage. I did the Literacy Through Photography project in Tanzania, and we, we're very upfront, like there with the teachers, helping the teachers organize, more different learning methods. But behind that, I wrote a day-to-day account of how our Tanzanian teachers were actually employing these types of methods. So I would just sit in the back and observe the classroom, and then I would write this day-to-day account. And I ended up making a how-to LTP workbook at the end of this entire experience, and it was kind of like a journal. And I wrote that, and I gave it, I submitted it to my director, and she took it, and she actually, without telling me, printed it out and made an actual workbook. And I thought that this was just going to be a good way for me to reflect, keep track of what we had been doing, and, support LTP in kind of a journalistic kind of way. And she took that and she printed it out, and it ends up that that type of writing really resonated with the Tanzanian teachers a lot better than having people constantly berating them about like what the steps of the method were, because they could see a narrative. And so a lot of teachers have contacted me since, saying that that really helped them come up with creative ways of employing LTP. And so I think that that was kind of like a head down, like I'm just going to write, like a account of what we're doing. And in the end, it helped, smooth things out, smooth the process out, just like how I think the website has done for DPS. And so that's one way that I've done that.
So for me, this is not very grandiose, but I think it's something that had a big impact on, when I explain it, I think it's something that has an impact on a daily basis almost for freshmen on East Campus. My freshman year when I was on House Council, we did a lot of kind of traditional programs, as you talked about, like with the big outcomes, a lot of people show up, it was a lot of fun and traditional success. But one of the things that we did that was kind of ongoing for me and almost became like my personal vendetta by the time second semester came around, was to try and get whiteboards for the study rooms. Because my freshman year, they were just like whiteboards like about like this big in the study rooms, besides Bell Tower, of course, because they're special. So one of the things that we came up with, we were like, we're going to use some of our funds to get bigger whiteboards, or even the like roll-on whiteboards that you have in the link. And they wouldn't let us do that because like they just have like specific ways you're supposed to use your funds. So they were like, but we'll look into getting it through a different funding source. Since you guys can't spend House Council money on it, I kept bugging them on it. They were dragging their feet. And eventually I talked to some of, a couple of my other House Council friends in other dorms who were presidents as well. And the way that we had known each other was that we had House Council meetings, and we had like a president's retreat. At one point we met the presidents of on East, and so I had that connection with them. And so when we finally, like when we sent like a joint email, they actually put in now those big whiteboards that are in every single study room on East Campus. They put those in at the end of the year. My year didn't really get to enjoy it. It came like right in the middle of finals time, but it's something that I'm an RA on East Campus, and I can tell you, and I'm sure any freshmen who are people who are sophomores or juniors now, they use a lot. You don't have to feel like you have to go to the link to study. So it's something that House Council is traditionally seen as like a social, like let's have fun, build community, and that's wonderful. But this was something that was kind of behind the scenes that took a while to do. And the reason I give that example is just because it was a case of having an organic relationship with other leaders and other, I guess, the metaphor would be other clubs, paid off in the end because it was something I couldn't possibly have done by myself because they were basically just ignoring me. That's why I call it a vendetta. Because Duke was just, I mean, they were just like, he'll just forget about it. And then when I brought in the other presidents, it made a big difference, campus-wide, not just to our specific dorms.
How could they? So, my last question was just going to be time commitments next year, but you all could just look at their applications. I think that's the final question, and I think that's really important to look at. In fact, just 4 seconds, list off what you're going to do next year other than DPS president, like other commitments, extracurricular.
Extracurricular, I will be playing lacrosse, and I'm undecided at this point whether I'm going to return to the varsity team or continue playing club. And I think a lot of that will depend on whether or not I have this position. This would obviously be a priority.
I'm in the Baldwin Scholars, so we meet maybe for 1 or 2 hours. Alpha Phi Omega, I volunteer with them about 4 hours. Kappa Kappa Gamma, about 4 hours of volunteering and social, and and academics. So, I mean, I've really chosen to make DPS my priority as well.
My only extracurricular will just be being an RA again, and I'll be on West, so it'll be even easier. And even my classes, as I mentioned before, I'll have a lot of free time. So this will be
cool. So now we just want to open it up for any questions, and feel free to fire away.
And having not been involved in DPS, like on the exec team beforehand, how do you guys plan on learning about how the executive side of it runs and making that an efficient transition?
I would have to ask all of you, obviously, but I would love to just, like, be as much a part of everything that's happening as far as, like, a shadowing perspective or whatever, so I can kind of get the feel of how things run, and then, like I said, like, just becoming friends with all of you and learning what you guys are looking for from us, and getting to know you so that it is, as you said, like a more organic relationship where if you guys need anything, you don't hesitate at all to come to DPS.
Yeah, I mean, echoing making an organic relationship, and also I think that I've had a lot of experience in bringing together a team of people I didn't know. I think that was most exemplified through Wilson House Council. When I did House Council my freshman year, obviously none of us knew each other. We were all completely unaware as to how Duke runs, how House Council runs, and I was able to work with my team of House Council members to create a really effective House Council. And so I think that I would just do that all over again. I think that meetings were a huge part of that. We made the meetings fun. We made the meetings social. I got to know everybody on a personal basis. I'm still friends with them to this day. So, yeah, I think that would be how I would get to know the exec board, definitely.
And I think, really the same answer they've given, which is just, I'm assuming that's probably why the elections are this early, so that we have time to kind of bother Andrew a lot and talk to him and see how his experience has been, and talk to other exec and sit in on